Hey, it's me, Maggie J. Today with a ranking of all the episodes of Season 1 of American Horror Stories. Overall, I give this season 2 stars because while it wasn't the worst thing ever created, it definitely wasn't very good. And I'm hoping that with as much feedback as the AHS community is giving about these episodes, perhaps Season 2 will force them to be better. Fingers crossed. Obviously, this is my list, but I am very eager to hear from you about your list. So leave me a comment. Let me know what is your favorite and worst favorite before we get started. And then that way we can see how our answers match up later. All right, so here we go from best to worst. Episode number 1, DriveIn, where the scariest parts of a horror movie take place amongst the audience, because the movie creator was a crazy psycho, and this time the movie's being played at a drive-in. I love this episode. It still remains my favorite after the entire season, because it was just so much fun. It was kind of like a zombie movie, but not like we've seen before. It wasn't so predictable that you could just tell what the ending was going to be right off. And the ultimate reveal was a new layer in what could potentially be a new kind of zombie. I enjoyed the campiness of it. It was very not serious at all. A lot of things didn't completely make sense, but there are still really great moments, and the story is not terrible. It's actually good. It's not too serious, despite the whole world going to shit in the end, but it's just fun. Kelly is the greatest character in the series, and I think you should watch it. Number 2 on my list is Feral, about a young boy who goes missing in the woods, but winds up later becoming the leader of a tribe of feral people who live in a national park, and even later orders the deaths of his parents, who came to search for him one more time. This really is a great storyline. I can't tell you how many hours a week I spend listening to stories about real life and fictional disappearances in the woods. And there's never a shortage of what it could be that is stalking or hunting or even snatched up a couple of humans already. That this wasn't a happy ending, I think adds to the scariness and uneasiness that I get when I think about this story later on, which is always a fun element in short stories. Just the thought that anything could get you in the woods when there's nobody looking at you, that's just terrifying. And that's why I particularly love these kinds of stories. All right, third on the list, Rubber Woman number 1. In the premiere episode of this series, we are taken back to the murder house for a new slant on the same old home. This time, it's a human member of the house that's a bit too sadistic. And it seems like the Rubber Man isn't taking too kindly to her trying to pick up his shtick. But instead of wrapping up the story with a nice cliffhanger ending and making us all wonder for the rest of time what happens between these two villains, maybe, they spun it into a completely unnecessary second episode that I think really ruined a lot of the good elements that happened in this story here. And I didn't like it. Until you get to that point, it's a pretty great episode. Scarlett is a gem, and her fathers are both good parents, which is usually not a combination that you get in stories like these. Her being a sadist was a great twist. She's got struggles. It just needed a good ending, and it probably would have been the best episode of this season. Way to ruin it, y'all. Fourth on the list, Bale. This is a really good urban legend kind of story about a guy who tries to trick his wife into thinking a fertility token helped them conceive, and now a demon is coming after their son. But he winds up paying for this deception in ways he never imagined. I found this to be more of a comedy than scary, probably because the last scene made me just giggle so much. So I didn't hate it, but this is a story that needs a lot more work, and it could have been so much better. At number 5 on the list, Rubber Woman number 2, an expansion of episode number 1 that is completely unnecessary and simply serves as a vehicle to introduce us and make me fall in love to this character named Ruby, who is now the Tate of the murder house, torturing all the ghosts that she wants because she's an angry, sad girl who killed herself on the property. There is no need to watch this. The cliffhanger from episode 1 is never addressed. And what is introduced here, I think it just takes away from the goodness of the storyline of episode 1. I would not waste your time watching this unless you just want to look at this lady because she is beautiful. Wondering what happened after the rubber man and confronted the rubber woman at the end of episode 1 is much more satisfying than watching the conclusion of what actually happens. 6th on the list, we're getting pretty down here. Game over. Someone tries to create a video game about the murder house, but their ignorance and later their hubris leads them to being killed at the murder house. And it goes on to make progressively less sense from that point. At the end, I'm left wondering how much of this episode here, and also the other 2 episodes about the murder house, how much of that actually happens or is real, which is never a good place to leave people when you're done telling a story confused. And finally, for the last episode on this list, the naughty list. It involved Santa and some douchebag vloggers who got killed spectacularly. I've already said I'm not giving this episode any more time than I have to, because there is nothing likable or good that happens in this episode. And we probably could have all just been much better off without this even existing. Even if Artie does have abs now. Good job, guy. I will reiterate one last time, do not watch this episode. You will be sadder after consuming this and realize you've wasted another 40 minutes of your life. Remember what the guy said in DriveIn? I'm really doing you a solid here? Yeah. And that's my list. Did you agree with the list? Did I get them all spot on? Or do you have some numbers that should be shuffled around in here? I'm open to suggestions in the comments, but I'm pretty firm on my stance, so you gotta come with a really good argument. If you did like the naughty list episode, I would really like you to contact me. I won't call the white coats or anything. I just want to know what you liked. What could you possibly like or enjoy besides the killing scenes of this debacle, debris of society? All right, I'll stop. That is all that I have to say for now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this list. I hope you check back soon. I am constantly working on videos. It's slow going. But until then, y'all stay safe out there.